Clinton, the development director from AK, and I'm with Craig, who's the product designer for the foils, and we're going to run you through some of the key points on the new Tracer V3. So I guess starting from the top, Craig, what would you say are the key changes that you would highlight on the Tracers?
I think the main three things essentially that we've looked at is aspect ratio, how we've designed the integrated blended wing construction, and the foil profile selection. So I'll take you through all of those individually. So looking at the front wing design, probably the most notable point that you'll see on these is how the wing is just integrated into the fuselage, and this is our blended wing construction. So not only is this going to give us a real stiff and bomb-proof responsive feel of the foil, but it's also going to give you a real hydrodynamic efficiency, allowing you to just have a more efficient foil in general. The other thing that we've looked at is aspect ratio. So aspect ratio was probably around 6.5, and that was known as our mid-aspect size, where now we've looked at pushing the aspect ratio up to 8.2 on the mid-size foils, and this is going to give us our maximum aspect for balancing your turnability and glide efficiency.
So that real benefit from the higher aspect is glide and pump at the same time?
Yeah, exactly. So your glide and pump's going to be improved, and we've looked at how not only the aspect ratio that's going to give us this, but also the shape of the front wing as well as the profile. So our profiles are a real efficient, higher speed profile that's still going to generate that low end that you look for in these sort of foils.
So I think from my experiences, the top end speed's got a lot better on the foils. So I don't know if we've really gained a lot on low end, but definitely on the high end, you're noticing that the foils can handle a lot more high speed, and that's down to the profile, right?
Exactly. So the profile thickness we've reduced. We've looked at how to optimize this completely.
So also the position of the mast relative to the front wing, that's moved further back. What was the key findings from that?
Yeah, mainly lateral stability at higher speed. So these wings are going to generate a little bit more speed, as we've just discussed, and depending on your board setup and what sort of speeds you're doing, the mast is actually going to generate that lateral stability in itself. So this was a reason for bringing the mast further back, just to improve that yaw stability and create a foil that's just going to track super well.
I think what's quite unique for the Tracers is its higher aspect, but you've also you've increased the taper ratio, and you've also put some sweep onto those. And how would that define to the rider feel?
Yeah, so not only is the foil slightly more swept back than traditionally, this is going to give you that turnability that we know in these foils, but the taper ratio is also going to allow for improved stability, as the foil is going to act a little bit more like a lower aspect foil, and just turn exactly how you want it to.
So I think that's also been the breakthrough, like making a foil that is closer to a traditional high aspect, but still extremely easy to use.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, looking at the fuselages, I guess that's another area that has a lot to do with control. Standard is a 31.5, right?
Exactly. Standard, mid-length, 31.5 centimeter. Then it steps up or down from there, either to a 36.5 centimeter being the slightly longer one, or 26.5 centimeter being our shortest fuselage. And depending on whether you're looking for a little bit more stability, you're going to go for the longer one, or say improved pump, or even more maneuverability, you're going to go for a slightly shorter fuselage.
And that would work really closely with the tail wings. So we've got the new G10 tail wings, and we did a huge amount of work on those. And I think that's really important. I mean, I would say tail wings being one of the areas where there's the most progress, and it's quite a different tail wing. What do you feel is important to highlight there?
Yeah, so traditionally we had the mustache tail wing, which had a lot of wingtip, and we've just looked at how we can optimize the tail wing to pair perfectly with our new foils. And these G10 tails, they're going to give you the perfect lift to balance your front and back foot, as well as the stability, with a little bit of a a wingtip to maintain that stability.
So a real blend of maneuverability and ease of use. So they pump well, and they're still, I would say they're generally more lively than they have been in the past.
Exactly.
And in terms of trimming them, like the trimmable fuselage, the trimmable tailpiece is probably a really important thing for us to highlight.
Yeah, probably something that you've come to know at this stage. Our trimmable connection system allows you to actually trim your tail wing without having to use any sort of shim. You can just set your tail up in the mid position. This is generally going to be a good position and well balanced. And then either wanting to increase your foot pressure or decrease your foot pressure, depending on your rider's weight, board selection, or personal preference. You're going to just shim your tail wing slightly forward and retighten the bolts, or slightly back, depending if you want a little bit more lift or less lift out of the tail.
So that's a really amazing amount of progress that we've made in that side. But for me, probably the carbon mast is one of the key points to highlight. And there's been a massive improvement in the performance and the stiffness of the mast. I think there's something difficult to see, but there's a lot going on in there, right?
Yeah. So looking at these carbon masts, we're also pushing our technology to its limits. And one of the main things that we use to achieve this is looking at our ultra high modulus carbon. So that carbon in itself is super stiff. And the way that we've applied it into this mast with our aero core construction and center spine, we've really made a mast that's boasting 10 out of 10 stiffness completely.
And a huge improvement in the torsional stiffness.
Exactly, torsional stiffness and lateral flex. We've tuned this out through our mast sizes in these carbon plus masts.
So I think from the kind of surf side for somebody who's looking for ultra responsiveness, the mast really makes a big difference. When would you suggest the 78 versus the 85 versus the longer length? What is your
I mean, a lot of people like the 78 for winging, and you're going to use your 98s if you're kiting and you need a little bit more length. People are also winging these when they're learning, just to allow a little bit more leeway in the mast. But yeah, we found the 78 and the 85 being our key wing and downwind mast sizes.
And I guess for me, the 98 would be if you kiting, and also if you tow foiling in bigger surf, it would be having that additional time and clearance. It would be an ideal product.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's about it. That is the new Tracer in a nutshell. If you want to email us or drop a message in the comments, and we will do our best to answer all the more detailed questions. Thanks a lot.